Have you been using LLMs like Codex and Cloud Code for doing the agentic development? And have you been experiencing token budget issue? And not only that, you are trying to explore, is it really possible to share both of these LLMs to do your work? What do I mean by that? Basically, do some half of the work using, say, Codex, and then do the remaining part of the work using Cloud Code, but do it in a very seamless fashion that what Codex does from there, the Cloud picks up, and what Cloud does from there onwards, you can make the Codex pick it up. Then this video is for you. I have been using this mechanism of sharing the work between the two models, that is Codex, that is GPT, and Cloud Code, and I have been able to basically do the most of my development in this mechanism. And what I want to do is showcase how something like this would actually look like. So by the end of this particular video, you should have a very fair idea of how to make these two frameworks, that is Cloud Code and Codex, commonly share a repository so that they can work with each other. Of course, there will be a human involvement in the middle, but we will try to automate as much as possible to the extent. And this has been working out for me very well. I don't claim that this is the only best way. There are even probably better ways. But for my hobby kind of project, this has been proved to be very efficient. So even though I do this particular project development as my hobby project, but I don't vibe code it. I always start with a proper engineering approach. That is, I first ideate with the model, and then with the idea concretized, I convert it into a proper PRD, that is product requirement document, and then I will take the product requirement document as an input to the next phase, which is the architecture, where I will do a review of the product requirement and come up with an architecture that will work to implement that particular PRD, and then the whole execution sequencing starts. So how does it actually look? So if you come here, whenever I get started with the development, the first thing that I do is I build a PRD. So for the refreshing of the UI, I have created my own PRD here. So first thing is I capture the idea that what I want to build, that is this particular thing. So this is basically in a essence a distilled version of all the ideas that I have in how I want to implement this particular UI refurbishment of my website. So once I have main idea, you can see that I have created quite a number of custom invocations here. That is CTPRD basically creates an idea into a PRD, and that is what this particular PRD actually looks like. This is the whole PRD, and once the PRD is created, then I invoke a CT architect on that particular PRD. That will basically generate the architecture document. So this is a documentation of the architecture that we are going to follow for that particular PRD implementation. And then once I have the architecture ready, I invoke CT-plan, because now I have the PRD ready and then also the architecture ready. Now it is all about creating the implementation plan, that is in the perfect order that I want to actually implement it. That is, I get a proper implementation plan. So what does the implementation plan have? It basically contains the proper order in which each of these things will have to be implemented. What is the dependency? So for example, the first one can be started without any dependency, but the second one cannot be started without completing the first one, and then the third one. So this is how it basically goes on. And then I have another thing called as CT execute next, which basically executes a plan, and then I have another thing called as a CT handoff prompter. This will basically take care of executing or giving a prompt that I can share between the two. When I will actually show you how I use it, you will get an idea. So right now what I am doing is I am trying to refurbish my website. you might be already aware that I have a website called as CodeTutor. This is my personal website. It's a hobby website that I have created. I am trying to improve the UI of this particular website. That's what I am trying to do. Now to do that, I first ideated with the LLM. Now the thing is, you might be wondering what are these two windows that you are looking at. The left hand side that you are looking at is Claude Code, and the right hand side that you are looking at is Codex. The way I have done the configuration in my repo, these skills work seamlessly across the Claude Code and Codex. For example, if you see here, it is able to recognize a skill called as CT-ideate. It's an invocation. I can do exactly the same here in the Codex as well, but instead of slash, it will be $CT-ideate. So it is exactly the same skill, but just that in Codex you call it using $CT-ideate, and here in the Claude Code I am calling it as CT-ideate. But at the end of the day, both of them are calling the same skill, same agent. So let's spend some time in understanding how this whole setup actually looks like. So if you come back here, I have this GitHub Copilot instructions, Claude Code setup, and agents. If you have done a bit of a programming across these different frameworks, agents is basically used by the Codex, GitHub is basically used by GitHub Copilot, and Claude is basically used by Claude Code. What I have done is I have written the standard files that you typically expect as a part of their agentic AI framework. For example, take Claude Code. Under the .claude, you have an agents file, and under this particular agents, I have created multiple agents like architect, backend specialist, DevOps, release. So if you go to the architect, this file actually doesn't look very big. It has a name, it has a description, what this agent does, which tools it uses, and what model it is supposed to use. But then if you see here, it doesn't contain much. But then I have a written statement that read this particular file, that is docs agents architect. If you see the other folder that is under agents, exactly same thing is happening. Under the agents architect, it once again refers to the same file, that is docs agents invocation ct.architect. So where are these particular files? So what I have done is I have created another separate folder called as agents under docs folder, and this is where I am placing all my agentic development related files like agents, skills, workflows, and everything. So here architect has pretty detailed behavior of how an architect agent is supposed to behave like. Requirement ideator, how that particular skill is supposed to behave like. For example, requirement ideator, it is type of agent, what it does, what is the role, what are the skills that it can invoke, how it can get triggered. For example, requirement ideator, whenever I say we should improve, I have an idea, what if. So it basically gets triggered whenever I use these kinds of strings during my conversation with the LLM. And then I have what input it takes, in what format it gives the output, what are the tools it uses, model, and everything. So all these agents are written here. And then invocations, the slash and $sign architect, what should get called. Then I have these various skills. And if you come to the skill here, skill also has a name, description, and then what roles can use this particular skill. An architect can use, a backend specialist can use, executor can use, reviewer. So all these things can basically use this particular skill. Other than that, I have templates. Templates basically tells you the standard template in which I want my documents to be created. For example, there is a template for creating the architecture document. So I have created this particular template, and whenever I ask the architect to create architecture, it follows this particular template, and then in which way I want the implementation to be done. So once again, I have a clear set of template that I want it to follow. So it follows this particular template. And then other than that, I have something called as workflows. What is a workflow? Workflow is a set of skills and agent invocations that are supposed to come in a particular order. For example, this is a workflow called as feature from idea to release. So basically what this does is in which order the whole execution should happen. For example, you start with the ideation, you create a PRD, you then architect to create a architecture, then planner is invoked, and then execution starts. Then there are specialized sub-agents like front-end specialist and back-end specialist. Depending upon whether I am doing front-end development and back-end development, those specific sub-agents would get called. Then tester, reviewer, to do different kind of work. And then to save tokens, I am using Graphify in this particular project. If you don't know what is Graphify, I suggest you watch one of my another video where I talk about in a detailed way how to use a Graphify. And all my skills, invocations, templates, and workflows are all present here. And then I have the agent taxonomy, which basically tells what all testers and what are the flows that it is supposed to use. Whenever I need to add any new skill or any new agent or any new workflow, I don't go and edit everything under skills, Claude, and GitHub. I only edit it or put it under this agents folder, and then I will update the skills under agents and Claude and GitHub to refer to that particular file and folders. So in this way, this particular space under the docs called agents is like a authoritative canonical placeholder for all my AI infrastructure that I want to use in my agentic development. The agents, Cloud, and GitHub, the framework specific template that we have to follow to do the agentic development, they just refer to these particular files that are there declared in these particular agents. In this way, I am pretty much able to seamlessly switch between the two frameworks for doing the development. And in a moment, I will basically show you how I use this for my development. So let me just go back to the development that I was currently doing and let me continue the work that I had stopped. That is, if I am not wrong, I have this file called as implementation plan, which is about UI refresh minimalist. I have completed third phase also. I remember that I had raised the PR and I have merged the PR. Now the next one that I have to do is the phase 4 implementation. So what I will do is I will go to Claude Code. I will say we have just implemented and merged the third phase by merging the PR 103. I want to get started with the phase 4 from the implementation plan. Give me a handoff prompter. So let me give the exact file name of the implementation plan. If you see here, I am using Fable, which is very high token guzzler. I will use this to create handoff prompt using which I can actually get started with the development. And you can see that it is verifying that whether the PR 103 has got really merged or not. And this is all part of the skill and the agent flow that I have written. So in a way, I am actually doing a spec-driven development. This is not vibe coding. There is a proper engineering involved in this particular development. And then what it does is it generates a prompt that I can give to any other model to actually do the implementation as per the prompt. So let's give it some time and we will see what happens. So as you can see that now it is creating a prompt and then it also says /ct execute next, because /ct execute next, which in this case is $ct execute next, it is a agent and skill invocation custom that I have created, which basically executes whatever the task that I have given it. So the prompt is ready. Let me copy this. And here I don't use 4.6 Sol, which is the highest model in the Codex. I feel Terra on a high effort or even medium effort should be fine, but let's go with Terra with high effort. And then I will simply paste this and I will say use the provided prompt to get started with the work and hit enter. So you can see that it automatically understands it has to use CT execute next workflow and it gets started with the work. So let's give it some time and it will implement the whole phase 4. As it is implementing, if you see here what the phase 4 prompt contains, it basically says that right now the phase 3 is being shown as implemented UAT UR review pending. It is merged, so then it basically marks it as done and then it goes to implement phase 4. And if you come down here, there is a clear branch discipline being maintained. So this phase 4 doesn't get started on the same branch. It creates a new feature branch for phase 4 and the work happens on that particular branch, and after everything is implemented, it commits everything in that particular branch and raises a PR against from the branch from where it had cut the branch. This is all basically baked into the prompt, in the prompt of the agent and skill, and that is why it is creating this particular handoff prompt in this structure. So as it is doing its work, let me explain some of the things on how this is being arrived at. Did I have this particular setup on day 1 itself? No. It took me some time to find my own rhythm on figuring out what works and what doesn't work. So if you are feeling that the thing is not working for you from day 1, you should not feel bad about it. Most probably it may not work in the go 1. The repository that I am working on is more than 1.5 years old, and the setup that you are looking at is a continuous iteration over last many months. In last couple of months, I have been able to arrive at this particular refined structure that you are looking at. So it takes time, so take your time. Now, did I come up with the whole structure on my own? No. Once again, I ideated with the LLM on my requirement on how I want this to work. I basically told the LLM that I want to make sure that I have a AI setup that works across Codex and Cloud Code such that I don't have to edit these skills and agents across both the framework structures. So can you give me a working structure based on that? Then it gave me a plan and then I reviewed it. Reviewing it itself took a couple of weeks because there were a lot of gaps. It was not explaining certain things very properly. So I asked for clarifications. Then it gave me some response and then I was not happy with it. Then I changed it. And after doing it for quite a number of times, then I kind of felt that now it has reached a stage where I can actually ask it to implement it. So then based on the ideation that I had with the LLM, I asked it to create that structure in the existing project that I already had. Then it created it. Now, once again, whatever it did create, did it work perfectly fine from day 1? No. Once again, I sat with a couple of sessions with Cloud Code or Codex, trying to refine it much better. If I created a skill in a session in Codex, it did not work in the Cloud Code. So there were a couple of such niggles here and there, but over the period of time, now it has reached a maturity where it works seamlessly without any problem. And now when I create a skill, it knows how to create it such that it works both across Codex and Cloud Code. So you will have to give yourself some time on make this working. And now coming to the question, how does this help me to save the token? Typically what I do is the planning part, which involves a lot of detailed understanding of the code base, the code structure, the files, dependencies, everything, and a little bit of detailed thinking through that. I usually give it to more higher model like Fable or Codex Soul, the one recently that we have got. And once that is done, the implementation, I usually go with something of a lower token burning model. And once the implementation is done, I raise a PR, but I don't merge the PR very immediately. The code has to be reviewed again. To do the coding review, I once again use higher model, like once again Fable, for example. And because my skills can be invoked across Codex and Claude Code without any problem, it works seamlessly for me. And this approach can be taken for any kind of application development. In this case, I am using it for a monorepo, TypeScript, Node.js based React application, but you can do it for Android application development. The concept here is engineering, not really the tech stack. The tech stack is immaterial. You can use it for any kind of application development, mobile application development, desktop application development, front-end application development using Python or even Node.js, JavaScript, anything for that matter. As long as your engineering flows matter in any kind of development, this can be used. Now, coming to the question whether these skills are shareable, unfortunately not. Whatever the skills and agents that I have created on my own over a long period of time, and they are little bit highly coupled with my project structure. So I can't really share them very immediately, but there are a lot of skills that are out there which you can download and which allow you to do this without any problem. There is very good GitHub repo called as Matt Peacock. Let me show you what do I mean. There is this guy called as Matt Peacock. He has a directory of skills which I find very useful. He has a skills and he has a engineering skills for doing code review, code based design, diagnosing the bugs, research, and wayfinder. This is very highly well organized, well structured skill, and you can basically download this and install this whenever you are working on any project. So let's assume that you want to convert your idea into a PRD. He has a skill for that particular thing. So if you come down here, he has this thing called as a 2spec. 2spec basically has a ability to turn the current conversation into a spec and publish it to a project issue tracker. So when you say project issue tracker, it actually puts it into GitHub issue tracker. Right now what I am doing is I am putting it in my personal files, .md files in my project, but this actually creates a issue. So this is much more elaborate than what I do in my project, but this is very useful. I was not aware of this particular skills when I was trying to build my own. So in any new project that I want to build, I would definitely would like to try out these things. But right now, whatever the setup that I have currently on my project, they are in a way pretty much trying to do the same thing, but in my own way. That is the only difference. My skills also pretty much do the same 2spec, test driven development, code based design, architecture. It does the code review and everything. So I suggest that you check out this particular GitHub repository and try out his skills. In some of the other projects which I started much later than my other earlier hobby project that I showed you, I have actually started exploring these skills, and they are very well designed actually. So agentic development is not at all vibe coding. It requires very highly attuned engineering skills, and if you don't have that, then it becomes really a struggle. So looks like it has done its implementation, and it is also showing how the screenshot actually looks like. Yeah, this is good. So the way the skill has been written is it also does the verification. It doesn't just do the implementation. It takes the screenshot and checks what the newly designed screens actually look like, and then it updates PRD and the implementation plan. If you come down here, earlier this third phase implementation plan was still under development, so now it has updated it to done, and then fourth phase is also done, and it should have raised a PR by now. Let us go there and check whether PR is done. Let me go to my own GitHub repository. Yes, a PR has been opened. This is PR 104. Let me make it ready for review. Another update. Earlier, I had a GitHub Copilot subscription. What used to happen was, as soon as I used to enable the PR for the review, I had a CI running which used to do automatically the default code review part. But now, because I am following this particular approach of using both Claude and Codex side by side, I am able to save the tokens of both to the great extent. And I really felt there is no really need for me to have the GitHub Copilot subscriptions. And if you have these plus subscriptions, I don't even have a max subscription. I just have Claude first level of paid subscription and Codex first level of paid subscription. And I am able to do my work pretty much without any major bottleneck. That is also another one of the reason why I like this particular approach. So you can see that it has raised a PR and it has given all the information and everything. Now to do the review, code review, I will go to the Claude and I will say this work has been implemented and PR has been raised. Let me give the PR link. Do the code review of this particular PR. Once again, if you see here, now to do the PR review, I am using once again Fable, the higher end. I feel this actually works better because usually even in an organization, in a team, what happens is plan is created by somebody who has much more experience. Then you hand off the development to the junior developers. The junior developers complete the implementation and they raise a PR, and that PR is actually once again reviewed by the leads or the architect or whoever has much more experience. So I think it very much well works with even LLMs. Use higher capable models to do the planning and code review and hand off the actual implementation to the junior level developers. That's what it is. And push the code review comments to the PR. So now it is doing the code review. And what it will do is it will review the code. It doesn't know the implementation part. In the context, it only knows what was supposed to be implemented here because it created this handoff prompt. It doesn't have the implementation details because implementation details is in the context of Codex. So in a way, this Claude Code doesn't have any bias towards its own work in that sense. So it can be a little bit more critical in its review of the PR. That is also the reason why I don't give the development work in the same context window to the same model. I always switch between the different models, between different context windows. You may say that this is slowing me down because nowadays they want complete automated development. Everything is running in a terminal and everything is enabled. There is no or very minimal human in the loop. I don't fully still subscribe to that way of development. And second, this is my hobby project. I can afford to take things at my own pace. And also, this is my way of basically experimenting things and figuring out what works and what doesn't work in agentic development. So I can afford to go at my own pace. But in the organization where there is a delivery timeline to be met, probably this might not work, but I'm fine with this in my personal workspace. So let it complete the code review. The question that you might be asking is how is it able to access the GitHub and how is it able to put the GitHub comments in the PR, all those things. It is doing it using the GitHub CLI, and I have also configured the GitHub MCP servers in both Codex and Claude Code. So that is the reason why it works. They can basically use the MCP servers to access the GitHub. So you can see that it has spawned off around 6 subagents to do its work. The Fable is actually very good at it. It automatically spawns multiple subagents to do the work. Same is the case with Sol, that is Codex Sol. So now you can see that it is posting review comments on the PR. So it completed the code review process and it has found out some issues in that particular PR, and it is going to post those comments in the PR inline. Let me quickly show you. Let me refresh this particular PR and you can see that now we have got PR review comments based on what we just ran. Now we need to fix these code review comments. Once again, I can give that particular thing here, but once again, I don't want to do that. To do that, I will say CT PR addresser. This is once again a skill that I have created whose only work is to go through the PR review comments and then fix those review comments. And after fixing, update the information in the PR inline to the review comments, telling exactly what it fixed so that it becomes very easy for me to see how it has been fixed. And if there is something fishy, I can once again have a manual look at it. So I will just hit CTPR addresser and hit enter. And that's it. Now Codex is going to take care of addressing the PR review comments that we have got from the Claude code. So it has gone through the PR review comments and it has identified what needs to be done. All I have to do is reply all to address every thread. So I will just say address all the review comments and fix those. And now all those issues must get fixed by this workflow. So now you can see that it has said that it has addressed all 10 PR review comments and has pushed the commit to this particular PR. So let me just go back there and refresh this, and you can see that it has fixed the issues and has put the comment saying that how it has addressed those issues. Of course, I will be doing my own check on top of this to basically verify that everything is implemented as per my expectation. I will be doing the manual testing, integration testing, and all those things. But it definitely has reduced the significant amount of effort in terms of how much time I would have taken to implement it manually. That is definitely out of question. This is how I work nowadays. And second one, it helps me to save the token, and this setup basically allows me to seamlessly switch between the models, that is Codex and Claude code. I have heard that people do use something like open code, but most of them have this limited capability because you will have to have the API key, that is either Claude Code API key or Codex API key, and it doesn't work very seamlessly with the already subscription that you might be having. I basically use just a subscription. I have not used any API keys here. It makes you sit through the whole development flow. You can't basically go away. You can go away to some extent. For example, in Claude Code, you have this remote control feature, or in Codex, you can basically control the whole flow from the mobile. I have done that as well, wherein I could not be available at desktop. So I basically took the control on the Claude Code and Codex and went off, and I was basically switching between the two mobile apps and was able to make it work, and it worked. But I still don't like that experience that much. I prefer actually using this approach where I am sitting in front of the desktop and actually seeing the cross model behavior, how they are able to pick up the things. And this is pretty much a basic level spec driven development that you can say that I have been able to use for developing my personal website. So I would like to hear your views on this. What you guys are doing? Do you have any mechanism that works for you? And if yes, please do let me know. Feel free to comment down in the comment section. Thanks for your time. That brings us to the end of this particular video. Don't forget to like, comment, share the video and subscribe to the channel. Take care. Bye.